Hello my friends, in today's video we will be comparing GoPro Hero 10 Black and DJI Pocket 2. Both Pocket 2 and Hero 10 are very compact devices that provide stable footage, but they do so in a very different way. They are generally very different devices, but they are quite often being used in a similar way. In this video we will compare the output, feature set and versatility of Hero 10 and Pocket 2 to find out which one is more suitable for you. As you can see, the construction of these devices is very different, and so is their primary use. Hero 10 is a classic action camera. It uses a water-resistant square body with the lens on the front side and screens on both sides. Pocket 2 has the lens and sensor mounted on a tiny gimbal, which is mounted to a handle with a display and controls. The primary use of the Pocket 2 is handheld video shooting, but it can also be mounted. The GoPro is probably meant for the mounted use in the first place, but a lot of users also use it as a handheld point-and-shoot camera. That is what makes this comparison relevant in my opinion. One of the main advantages of the GoPro is the durability. Hero 10 is built like a tank and it can survive a lot. I think that GoPro doesn't get enough credit for that. The overall concept in terms of the sensor and lens combination is very different. GoPro has stayed with a classic action camera concept with, let's call it a medium-size 1/2.3-inch sensor and ultra-wide about 16mm equivalent f2.5 lens. Pocket 2 uses a significantly larger 1/1.7-inch sensor combined with a 20mm equivalent lens. This lens also has much brighter f1.8 aperture. An advantage of Pocket 2 approach is what I would call a more classy look. 20mm lens for a larger sensor is also easier to make, so it can capture more detail and it requires less digital corrections. Pocket 2 uses a 64-megapixel sensor, but DJI was able to get the video processing right, so it has no negative effects on the image quality. Hero 10 Black shoots very nice action camera footage. GoPro has improved the image processing. It can capture a solid amount of detail. The sharpening is set reasonably and it is good compromise between the sharpness and avoiding the artifacts. 16mm focal length is more immersive and in my opinion a good choice for intended purposes. An advantage of GoPro is that it doesn't need autofocus and you can have everything in focus all the time. Pocket 2 can only shoot 4K video, whereas the GoPro can shoot 5.3K video. That extra resolution actually helps GoPro get very close to Pocket 2 in terms of the detail in ideal conditions. This is a pretty big surprise considering the big difference between Pocket 2 and Hero 9. The low-light performance of Pocket 2 is by far the best among pocket and action cameras, so it still destroys Hero 10. The difference is huge. As you can see, there is no competition here. Having said that, Hero 10 performs pretty well within the sensor and lens limitations. The dusk footage is still not bad for an action camera. Thanks to the GP2 processor, Hero 10 can shoot 5.3K video up to 60 frames per second and 4K up to 120 frames per second. Those are very impressive numbers, so here again GoPro definitely deserves the credit. Pocket 2 can shoot 4K up to 60p, which is also impressive with that larger sensor. The image quality on Pocket 2 is better in 24, 25 and 30p though. The colors on both are very similar. Both are still pretty highly saturated, but it is not too much. Especially not by action camera standards. GoPro is a bit more contrasty, but the differences are pretty minor. Pocket 2 can still work significantly better with the dynamic range. It can retain a lot more detail in the highlights, which makes a pretty big difference in the overall quality of the footage. Hero 10 is still a big improvement over Hero 9 in terms of the dynamic range, where it really wasn't great. The dynamic range on Hero 10 is not bad, it is just really great on DJI. Both cameras also have good options to shoot flat footage. On GoPro you can set flat color and lower the sharpening. On Pocket 2 we have D-Cine-like color mode, which captures solid dynamic range, and the sharpening is very reasonable. Flat profiles on both give you good options for matching the colors in post. At the moment, I think that both DJI and GoPro have chosen the right imaging concept for their device. Pocket 2 offers great image quality thanks to that 1/1.7-inch sensor and 20mm lens. The autofocus is not a limitation on this type of device. Pocket 2 also has a live cropping zoom function, which is surprisingly useful. Even 2x zoom is usable if you need it. Ultra-wide everything in focus concept works very well for mounted use and situations where getting the shot is the highest priority. Another difference is the method of stabilization. As I've said, Pocket 2 uses a gimbal, whereas the GoPro uses Hypersmooth 4.0 electronic image stabilization. These have different advantages, as I have explained in my previous comparisons. The main advantage of Hypersmooth is that there are no moving parts and nothing to break, which makes it ideal for GoPro. It can also stabilize up and down movement, which is something that a 3-axis gimbal can't do. The gimbal on Pocket 2 has multiple advantages. First of all, you can choose from 4 follow modes. You have the follow mode, which keeps the horizon leveled and it follows the panning and tilting. In tilt lock mode, it also keeps the horizon leveled, but it only follows the panning axis. FPV mode follows all of your movements, including the horizontal axis. This is basically the only mode available on the GoPro and other devices with electronic image stabilization. The fourth mode on Pocket 2 is the lock mode. That will keep the camera pointed in the same direction. You can also use the joystick for very precise gimbal movements, so that is a big advantage. Pocket 2 also has object tracking. You can select the object to follow by double tapping on the screen. It will also detect face in the frame automatically and it will start tracking person in the frame. It works very well for objects close to the camera, but not so well for objects further away. You can also control the gimbal remotely, so you can basically compose the shot using the smartphone app. Regarding the efficiency of image stabilization, that is difficult to judge because wider field of view is always easier to stabilize. I can say that the footage looks great on both. Pocket 2 is better at static shots, panning and pointing the camera. The walking also looks surprisingly good on Pocket 2. A little bit of up and down movement is still visible, but it can keep the horizon leveled, so it is a matter of preference. If you know how to walk with gimbal properly, you may actually get better results in some situations. You have seen the samples, so you can decide what you prefer. A very important advantage of Pocket 2 is that the stabilization is never affected by the low light. GoPro still has some issues with that, although it works pretty well in dusk. If you are interested in more samples, take a look at my Hero 10 review. Regarding the stills, Pocket 2 can shoot very impressive 64MP JPEGs or RAWs. The image quality with these is again among the best compact consumer cameras. These are very detailed and the RAWs capture a lot of dynamic range. Stills from Hero 10 are very nice as well. It can shoot 23MP stills with a nice amount of detail and greatly improved processing. I think that Hero 10 is the first GoPro that can be seriously used as a stills camera. It can also shoot RAWs with a very solid amount of dynamic range. A big advantage of the GoPro are both screens. Hero 10 uses a 2.27-inch rear display. This is a very good display and it significantly improves the user experience in comparison to older GoPros. It is very detailed and sufficiently bright, so it is generally a joy to work with. There are some big improvements regarding the 1.4-inch front screen. The first improvement is that the front and back screen can work at the same time. That means that you don't need to change any settings to be able to see yourself. The second improvement is that there is no lag on the front screen at all. It is as fast as the back screen. The user interface is pretty good in my opinion. All of the settings are relatively easy to find and understand. The preset system can also be very useful and it can speed up the operation once you get used to it. The responsiveness is also a lot better now. Osmo Pocket has a small 1.08-inch screen and you will mostly be able to use it for composing your shots and maybe adjusting exposure. Brightness and sharpness is also sufficient, so even though you won't be able to check the focus, it is okay for intended purposes. Of course, you can always connect it to your smartphone if you need a larger screen. The user interface is pretty good in my opinion. It is probably as good as it can be at that screen size. It also uses swipe system, so the items are easy to find and understand as well. Hero 10 uses the same 1720 mAh batteries as Hero 9. The battery life is pretty solid. I was able to get about 75 minutes of continuous 5.3K 25p recording with hypersmooth stabilization and high bitrate setting on a single charge. Unfortunately, I got the same results when shooting 4K. Pocket 2 uses 875 mAh non-removable battery. I was able to get 118 minutes of recording on a single charge at 4K 25p at the highest quality. Surprisingly, the battery life is much better on DJI Pocket 2. On the other hand, you can just swap the batteries in the GoPro, which is a significant advantage. You can also charge both devices during the usage. Pocket 2 is a lot more resistant to overheating. It may get warm after 15 minutes of continuous recording, but it definitely isn't anything dramatic. Hero 10 can get really hot after about 20 minutes of 5.3K video recording. There are some ways to deal with that, as I will explain in my upcoming videos, but it is clearly a weakness of Hero 10. A huge strength of both devices is the availability of the accessories. Accessories are a huge part of the ecosystem of both devices. They can dramatically improve the creative options provided by both cameras. I have made a video about the best accessories for DJI Pocket 2, which will be linked in the description. I will also make a video about the best GoPro accessories very soon. The audio quality on Pocket 2 is by far the best of all action and pocket cameras on the market. It has 4 microphones all around the device, and as long as you don't cover any of them, you will get excellent audio quality. If you have the dual handle, that one also has 3.5mm mic input, and you can also use it with the DJI's wireless microphone, so the options for external recording are also great. The audio quality of Hero 10 Black is among the best action cameras on the market. It is definitely good enough for vlogging and for all-round usage. It is not quite as good as with DJI Pocket 2, but it is better than with Insta360 One R. To sum up, I can say that both are very good devices. The choice between these two depends on how you intend to use the camera. DJI Pocket 2 is still a better device for handheld use, vlogging, and sort of point-and-shoot type of usage. GoPro Hero 10 Black is more suitable for mounted use, POV shooting, and any situation where you need a rugged camera. Then there are some specific advantages, such as the low light performance or advanced gimbal functions on DJI Pocket 2, and higher frame rates or better displays on Hero 10. When I was comparing Pocket 2 and Hero 9 last year, the Pocket 2 was generally much more impressive device. Various upgrades on Hero 10, mostly associated with the GP2 processor, have made it a much more complete device. I can say that it is a lot closer to Pocket 2 in terms of the overall impressiveness. Much like in the Pocket 2 vs One R comparison, I think that it makes sense to have both devices. The type of footage that they produce and the ideal use cases of these two cameras are, in my opinion, different enough to justify owning both. Both are, in my opinion, great devices, so I can highly recommend both, and I hope that this video has provided necessary information and you will be able to make the right choice. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share opinion, please do so in the comment section, and see you next time.